Hello everybody, welcome back to another reading. Today we're taking a look at the very mysterious case of John Lang of Fresno, California, who died under suspicious circumstances on January 20th in 2016, so it's not even that old of a case. The thing is, we can say he was fairly paranoid. He started to watch the Fresno PD. I believe he also regularly tried to report things that were happening around his house. He caught a few people in a van in front of his house with cameras pointed at his house. I don't know what they were doing there. And then a couple of days later, he had this rug cleaning place that was supposedly going to do stuff for the neighbors, but also kind of hung out in front of his yard. And he had cameras everywhere because he was really not feeling like he was going to make it through this. He actually posted that on social media, I believe, shortly before he died, like that things were about to happen. And he really suspected that the police department was going to have something to do with that. I believe he even accused one or more people, I'm not entirely sure, but he accused them of some very bad behavior, which I shall not repeat here because I don't think YouTube would like to hear that. It's a thing that the algorithm tries to filter out, but I'm pretty sure people have videos on John Lang of Fresno. The story leading up to his death is already quite interesting because he comes across as somebody who is very paranoid, but he also had a lot of evidence to show. Like, there's just some really weird things that happen around his house, and sure, in part it's because he's always watching the cameras and everything that happens he notices, and some of it I'm pretty sure is pretty harmless, but there are some really strange things. Like I said, the guy in the van with the camera, and then the people that are just hanging around in front of his house. It's just very strange, but the strangest part about this story is the way that he died, because there was a house fire reported on January 20th of 2016, and when they came into the house to first of all put out the fire, but also see how he was doing, the occupant of the house, they found him stabbed to death. They assumed that it was suicide, which is odd because I'm about to tell you how he arrived at the coroner's office. He arrived in a body bag, naked, with his clothing underneath him. His clothing was clean, but he had stab wounds and only soot covering the areas that the clothing would have covered had he still worn them. So he had been in the house fire, he had been stabbed to death, but apparently when he was stabbed to death, there was either no fire or he was just, I don't know, washed or something. Also, there were no holes in the clothing. The clothing were perfectly fine, and they claimed that the weapon that was used to stab him was a bread knife and that the wounds were self-inflicted. So that is also very unique and quite talented if you're able to do that. So that was very strange, and the story of John Lang is quite strange in itself, so I thought maybe we could use the tarot to try and get some information out of this, because it's a very odd thing. It's not really ever let me go, this story, because, you know, like I said, on the one hand, he was quite paranoid. There are people who are just suspicious of everything, but there are also some very strange things that happened around his house and to him as well, so I was hoping the tarot could give us some answers as to that, at least about the day they died, what happened there. So that's a long intro. We are using, I believe this is called the Apocalypse Tarot. I'm not entirely sure about the name because the box is not with me right now, but it's kind of like this. It has these apocalypse themed images, which I thought was quite, you know, suitable for John Lang, because I'm pretty sure he lived in a final days type mindset, at least final days for him. And if we have any further questions, we're moving on to the Smith-Waite Tarot deck, which is this one. It has the Art of Waite, and then the writer is Smith. So as per usual, I'm just going to start shuffling the deck, and when I have enough cards on the table here, we'll stop and take a look. So let's get right to it. Okay, so we got a nice lineup here. I always say that, but it is always a nice lineup, obviously. So let's get started. Over here in the top, we have the Ace of Swords and the King of Wands and the Three of Cups. Actually, these four. Let's see, up to here, I would say this is the people who did whatever it is that they did to him, because I honestly don't think that he did that to himself, quite honestly. That's why we're doing the reading. Anyway, so this looks as though that somebody had some bad intentions for him, and this person is being represented by this reverse King of Wands, which is somebody who tends to take action. In this case, it could be action that is perverted, and for whatever reason, they have lost their cool. Three of Cups is normally like a gathering, a party, that type of thing, people coming together, having harmonious discourse, etc. like that. But I feel like whatever John may have done has really ticked off this King of Wands, and now he's like, okay, I thought out my plan, this is what we're going to do. And then the Ace of Cups over here is also representing basically the cup being emptied, the whatever options that he may have had. Like maybe he could have had second thoughts about it, doubts about it, like, oh, maybe we can choose a different course of action. But I do believe that the Ace of Cups in reverse here with this lineup over here means that he was not going to consider any other options. There was no new options on the table for him, no other cards, and so he decided to go on with his action. Then we see the Six of Swords here. Now you see this card, I'm going to grab it and show it to you a little closer because it's quite a detailed card. It's got a lot of different rooms with a lot of different stuff in it, and all of them seem to have a plan. This is like the underground bunker. Six of Swords is normally like being led by the universe, and in this case the card went in for upright. I'm pretty sure it would have led these two people over to this probably very rich bunker that they could have used, and they would not have found any other way other than following, I guess, the universe's guidance. But this kind of says to me like there was no guidance here. It was more like they planned it carefully. They knew exactly what they were heading into, and you can also see that with the Hanged Man in reverse over here. Hanged Man is usually taking a different perspective, and in this case Hanged Man is also showing somebody being strung up by a trap over there on the tree branch. I think that this was a carefully laid plan and to ensnare him and make it maybe even look like an accident, because on the other row, it's very odd here because we start off on the other row with the Star, which is somebody I believe that has quite a bit of renown, and we have the Four of Wands here, and then we get the Ace of Wands. Because what this is saying to me, like, this is like a gathering right here. He may have known, maybe somebody showed up at the door is what I'm trying to say, and they like maybe try to lull into a false sense of security, perhaps with pretending that they were just there to have a peaceful time with him, perhaps even maybe come clean about certain things. Like, I'm pretty sure John was also suspecting people of bad behavior, like I said, and maybe he just came in, or they came in and were like, hey, let me just talk this out because I'm pretty sure we don't really want anything violent to happen here. Let's just go and see if we can talk to each other like reasonable human beings, etc., etc. So this is like the harmony coming together and just, I don't know, having a good time, supposedly. But then comes the Ace of Wands, and in this deck in particular, it is a gun that's being cocked, as you can see. And that might very easily point to the fact that there was a knife behind somebody's back while they were sitting there pretending to have a nice dinner and open discussion with John. So there was something under the grass, a snake in the grass, that was about to bite him. That was the plan being put into action. Next we see the Ten of Wands next to the Nine of Cups and the Knight of Wands. Okay, so this is kind of an odd lineup over here because Nine of Cups is normally somebody who's fairly comfortable in their own place. You can see her lying there with all of her water surrounding her, and in an apocalypse situation you would definitely be very happy if you had all these resources instead of starving and being dehydrated. But it's surrounded by the Ten of Wands, which is somebody crawling on all fours and with lots of burden on their back, and the Knight of Wands, which is somebody who's going to go out and take action. So this might be a struggle. It almost seems like they're very much alone. This was pretty much how they lived for the last couple of years, I believe. Like, he was very self-sufficient, I imagine. He was home alone a lot. That's where he felt best. But he did carry quite a lot of burden, and I guess he was able to take a lot of actions. quite ready to jump up and take actions whenever he felt the time was needed. So this might be partially to blame why he was able to be fooled like this with the Ace of Wands, because he had been carrying a lot of burden for many years. Like, he chose to do that. Obviously, he installed all the cameras. He was the one keeping watch of all the monitors, etc., like that, because it made him feel comfortable. He needed a sense of control, but it was definitely wearing on him, particularly because he was always ready to make a move whenever he felt that was needed. So I think that is what led him to be fooled like this. Like, when somebody finally comes along and then offers you an olive branch, you might initially be like, I don't know, but at the same time, you're so tired and weary, you might want to give them a chance just to see, because this Knight of Cups is also kind of showing like, oh, hey, whatever they want to try, I have lots of stuff here that I can use, just pull out of anywhere. I'm pretty sure he had like stores or caches of weapons and things all throughout his house that he could have pulled out in any moment, which they probably were aware of, because if this really was a planned action, they probably knew all about what was in that house, so that they couldn't be surprised by it. So he was in this supposition that he was going to make it through regardless of what happens. Like, he was going to be able to use that Knight of Wands energy, just take anything out of a closet anywhere and deal with whatever situation would come up, and therefore he was not too afraid of them when they came up with, hey, let's just go and talk for a minute. Let's just talk like man to man and see if we can work this out like that. Like, he wasn't really feeling intimidated because he felt he could handle himself, but apparently that lulled him into a false sense of security, which they took advantage of. Now let's see about the situation itself. Let's see if we can find anything about that. Like, also, can we eventually find out what happened? Ten of Wands, Knight of Wands. Okay, so Knight of Wands in reverse is basically the follow-up to this Knight of Wands over here. So whatever actions he thought that he was going to be able to take were frustrated, was not able to do that, and whatever he had built up over the years did not serve him well, because normally you would think that all this stuff that you've set aside for problems to deal with them would do you a lot of good, but ultimately it was wasted, and he was not able to take advantage of that, perhaps because he was acting so rashly. Like, maybe they tried to talk things through, and he initially was okay with that, but then he decided to try to remove him from the house regardless. Queen of Cups, okay, so that is somebody, doesn't have to be female, but somebody who is dishonorable, cannot really be trusted, and therefore this will be the person that showed up at their house, or persons possibly, but probably one person in particular who was probably very good at handling perhaps certain types of suspects. You know that, like, certain law enforcement agencies have specialists that train for all sorts of different circumstances, are very specifically trained for dealing with different types of people. Like, this might be the type of person that showed up at the house to lull him into that false sense of security, but they were not able to keep his suspicions at bay for long. Right, because the Lovers is in reverse, so they definitely did not agree for very long. I also see here the Page of Pentacles, which is like acting on a whim, and maybe trying to get something out of the situation, like a quick advantage maybe. Like, maybe they were being too forward. Like, even though they probably studied for it, like I said, they may have tried to grab a quick profit with him too quickly, or move too fast, and that's what caused him to mistrust them. Like, you really need to be very careful when talking to people who have a certain paranoid personality, because even if you think you're doing harmless things, they might have different ideas about what it is that your words or your gestures might mean. So perhaps they move too fast, and that's where this disbalance came from. Because the Page is often a very youthful, enthusiastic energy, so probably they were not mature enough in their skill and their crafts to avoid this turning into a confrontation. Whoop, I've got 3 cards here. Knight of Pentacles. I'm going to put them down first, and you have the 2 of Swords, being of 2 minds. And the King of Pentacles. Okay, so this is coming from somebody higher up, somebody who is resourceful, who sent out their knight to deal with it. And maybe they were also not entirely sure what to do with situation themselves, because we have the Two of Swords here, which is kind of like being on the fence, not really sure where to go, perhaps also being afraid to take certain actions, so they might have been too careful. Knight of Pentacles is somebody who is very careful, normally very methodical, plans things out. But they were dealing with the King of Pentacles because he was even more prepared, because all of these pentacles are his. So I feel like they may have had that level difference. Oh, I see that the camera's turned. Hang on. There, hopefully that's a little better. Yeah, so definitely a level difference, like bringing a sword to a gunfight, that type of thing, because they probably underestimated how prepared he was and how paranoid exactly, even though they probably saw lots of reports from him coming in about suspicious activities. They may have just underestimated how on guard he would be, and that may have led to the issues. And the Two of Swords in that case could also mean that they might have just doubted if they really needed to take this action at all. We have here the two, or rather the Six of Pentacles in reverse, so no charities. They were not willing to take a step back from their position. Could be either side here, that neither were really willing to give up any type of ground that they may have had. But since it's next to the King of Pentacles, I feel like he was not willing to compromise at all. Right, so here is the Four of Wands in reverse. So now we have the disharmony, and we have here the Six of Swords. They were trying to guide him, but due to the disharmony, that was not going to work. I feel like he is actually the person on the back of the boat pushing it along, so he really made sure to keep his hand on the steering wheel the entire time, so that nobody was going to pull a fast one on him. Whoops, that's way too much. This one, and then we'll see which ones of these, because this is too much. More advanced version of the Queen. We have the Queen underneath here somewhere, I believe over here. Queen of Cups was already deceitful, but the King of Cups even more so. But now it's more like after this refusal to let anybody tell him what to do, the manipulation got turned up even more, and you got the Knight of Cups as well. So this is almost pointing towards two people having this plan, and both of them trying to convince him, but I think at this point it was already too late. Okay, moving back to the other deck for any final cards that we can find on this. Like, this seems like almost a pleading type of situation, because the King of Cups is very manipulative, but the Knight of Cups tends to just focus on himself. So maybe they were like, oh, what about me? What do you think I think? How do you think this looks? That type of thing, which he was definitely not interested in, because I don't think he had too much in common with that. We have the Seven of Cups here, which is, in this case, treachery, because you can see over here, if you're not careful, you're going to end up falling through the hole into the pit of vipers where many other people have gone before. So this whole situation here was just trying to, at the very last minute, charm him into submission and perhaps trap him. Oh. And then we have Justice here, which is the conflict itself. As you can see, very interesting that they're on the ground with a stab wound. Also, this person is not wearing any clothes, and he has 3 wounds, so that makes a lot of sense, because he was definitely stabbed, I believe, 3 times, and he had no clothes on that showed any sign of puncturing or bleeding. So this is like the final confrontation when things went terribly awry, and then we have the Queen of Wands here, which I believe is just to cover things up. Queen of Wands tends to be very actionable. She knows what she wants, and she's gonna go get it, so this will probably be the wrapping up of the case afterwards. So that is what I'm seeing. It looks like they tried to come over to pull a fast one on him, I think is a term we could use here. Like they try to charm him or lull him into some type of submissive state, or at least a state in which he was not going to be dangerous, but that turned sour on him because he turned out to be a lot more wary than they were giving him credit for. And their plan went awry, but they eventually solved it, quote unquote, by sending the Queen of Wands out, which doesn't have to be a female, but somebody who has that type of energy who's just going to fix everything. The fixer came in and fixed things, and I guess talked to a whole bunch of people to look the other way in certain areas. I don't know, but they tried to smooth everything over so that nobody would notice. Unfortunately, we do have the internet, which likes to figure out exactly what happened in every situation imaginable. So that's why we're looking at this today. So that seems to be the reading for now. Hope you found it interesting. Make sure to leave a like. That really helps the channel along. In any case, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in another video, and bye bye for now.